Hi there guys, it's Joel here from Aussie Chart Trends. Today's market update is for Monday the 14th of January 2013. In today's update we're going to be checking out the smp500 and then we're going to take a look at the asx200. Before we get into today's update, I've just got to remind everyone that aussiecharttrends.com.au and this video are for educational purposes only. Nothing stated at the site from this video is intended to be used as any form of investment advice. I'm not a licensed professional. You need to make your own decisions regarding your investments. I'm just here to help anyone searching for a practical direction in today's markets. So firstly guys, let's take a look at the daily chart of the smp500. This is going back all the way to the head and shoulders top here that we had in 2011. Now you'll probably notice that a lot of lines are missing off the chart. I've cleaned the charts up a fair bit, especially on the hourly time frame as well. But you'll notice I've changed this color to purple, this top line here, which was previously yellow, and we've just extended that out over the two head and shoulders tops that we had there, one there in 2011 and the other one there in 2012, and somewhere through the middle there we've extended that out and we've ran into this area of resistance. Now the other thing that you'll notice I've done is I've just changed the color of this bottom channel line here. Now this is extended from the lows that we had there in October of 2011, and we've drawn that underneath the lows there that we had in November of 2012. Now we've seen this big push up in the market, and as you can see, this looks as if that the smp500 may be just coming up in a rising wedge. Now that would be defined by this top line here and this bottom line here. So we have to leave this open to interpretation that this may be a rising wedge pattern. Now guys, we have been looking at an inverted head and shoulders pattern in here that is signaling a move up to the 1530s, but I'm not completely convinced yet, which we'll discuss in a moment. The other thing that I do want to discuss on the daily time frame is this other line that I've got drawn here. That's over this peak here, and I've extended that out, and that lines up perfectly. So if the smp500 can get on up above this area here where we're currently sitting, I would say then that we would find an area of resistance up here on this this overhead line in the 1520s to the 1530 area, which funny enough would be the measurement to our inverted head and shoulders pattern. But I do want to keep this on the radar because we do have other areas of resistance there. Let's take a look on the hourly time frame. Okay, to get a good idea of what we're looking at here, on an hourly time frame going back to May of 2012, where we've seen a head and shoulders top, that also had a triple top formation, funny enough. We've seen that break down, that head and shoulders top, and then we've seen that the market had an area of support here. Now I've just drawn this line all the way up, and as you can see, we have another line up here that I've also drawn that is looking like that the S&P has broke down from this huge looking rising wedge pattern, and that we've seen the market break down eventually after back testing this area, and we just weren't able to hold there, and you can see that the market violently sold off to create the head of this inverted head and shoulders pattern that we're looking at now. That being, this would be our left shoulder here, our head here, the right shoulder with the handle breakout. Now let me explain. After breaking this green line, we have now rallied on back up for a back test right on this green line. And the other thing that we're doing now is we're back testing this purple line as we mentioned before on the daily chart. So at the moment it's looking as if that we are potentially forming a top around this area. Even though we do have this inverted head and shoulders pattern, the thing is guys, this right shoulder, when we broke down to this area down here, there's always technically a reason why the market will come down. We did find that area there of support underneath our triple top formation, and we found that there was a nice bounce there, and that was able to save the market. But now we've got two areas here of support there that was made there in mid-November, and then we've got another area here which was also made around the 1st of January or the 31st of December, that acted as an area of support. So guys, the fact that we've rallied on up to this area now looks as if that we may be potentially in a rising wedge pattern defined by this green line and this bottom line. The goal of me doing these videos isn't to tell you how it is, but we do need to keep an open mind for the bullish possibilities and for the bearish possibilities. Now, it is possible that we will get over this area. Let's just zoom in a little bit and I'll just give you an idea of what's going on there in the short term. Now, just so I don't confuse you, this green line here is the resistance area. After we've seen that big breakdown from that left shoulder, you can see now we've rallied on back up to backtest this area, and now we're attacking that area again. So guys, we've got 1, 2, 3 areas there of overhead resistance. So in the short term, I think what we could expect from the S&P is that we will eventually top out around this area, because there's 3 main areas there of strong resistance. Now, following on from the weekly review, I've actually deleted this line that I had horizontally drawn from this peak over this peak, because really guys, we could expect that this little inverted head and shoulders pattern will get to its target of around that 1480 area, but I wouldn't be trading, that's for sure, because this area here, there's a lot of overhead resistance, and you'd expect that we'll probably get a push down in the market. I think that we would probably most likely get a push down in early trade of this week, especially if we break this lower boundary channel line here, which I've identified. We would probably then most likely come down to that 1455 area, 1456, and we would potentially get a bounce around this line. But if we were to break that, then we would be looking around the 1440 to 1445 area as a level there of support. But overall, this bottom line here is very important, because this bottom line is actually drawn underneath those lows that we had there in November. So you'd think that the S&P 500 may top up here, and we should find an area of support down here around that 1445 level. You know that we have been looking at a very large inverted head and shoulders pattern that could potentially be forming, but we do have to keep an eye out on the bearish possibilities, as we do have these areas of resistance there in the chart. Let's see if we can hold that support level in the coming weeks, and let's expect that the markets may potentially come back down to test some lower levels there of support. So let's see in the coming week what the S&P 500 can do there. Let's take a look now at the asx200. Okay, looking here on the hourly chart of the asx200, I've mentioned this bottom blue line a number of times now. After we broke down violently from this area, we rallied on all the way back up. We back tested this blue line. Then we had a bit of a sell-off here with a little head and shoulders top formation that we expected the move to drop from this point. We've seen the correction down, and then the market has now rallied on up to new highs. For the past 10 trading days or so, we've just hovered around this area, and we've had really no direction, no clear direction as to which way the market really wants to go. Following up from the weekly review, there on the hourly chart, which I'll show you in a moment, we've got a symmetrical triangle pattern there, whether we could see a break to the upside or a pullback to some areas of support. Now, the area of resistance to keep a watch on is this rising line here. It's around that 4,734 level, and that is rising. So the ASX, you'd expect that it would have a hard time getting up over this line, and that we would probably see a bit of a pullback. And on the daily time frame, we've also got a support level here around that 4,650 level. So that should be an area there of support. Let's take a look on the hourly chart and just get a feel for what's going on there. Okay, so looking at this symmetrical triangle pattern defined by this bottom line here around that 4,690 level, and we've got this top descending line. Now, in today's trade, we weren't able to get over this line. We actually tested this area twice today, and we just couldn't get the steam to get over it. Your guess is as good as mine at the moment. We may get the break to the upside around that 4,470 level, but if we do see a pullback and a break of this 4,690 level, we would then have a target of around that 4,640 level, and I would say that that would be a fairly healthy thing for the asx200. The only other thing that I can mention is that it does look like that we're in a little bear flag pattern, because the market has got to a point now where in the next trading day we're either going to see that break to the upside or we will see a sell-off in between. So it's just something to keep your eye on there for the short term, and that it is likely that we'll probably come down, but I like to be optimistic and hope that we see a break to the upside. Now you've got to admit we've had an excellent rally all the way up from early November. We've skyrocketed all the way up. We had that inverted head and shoulders pattern that got met, and now we're at a point that if we do see a pullback, there's nothing to be really concerned about at this stage. So that pretty much wraps up today's market update. I'm sorry if I did get a little bit overextended there with the S&P, but there's a lot to get through, and there's a lot of technical things going on at the moment that are very interesting. Alright guys, I'll see you tomorrow for the next market update.